Hey, welcome back. The Alberta PC leadership race is into its final weeks. On March 18th, delegates will vote for their first permanent leader since the late Jim Prentice stepped down after that stunning defeat back in 2015. The campaign has been largely dominated by Jason Kenney's pledge to unite the right by merging both the PCs and the Wild Rose Party. That, of course, has some members of the party upset and actively trying to disqualify him from the race. Kenney's opponents, Richard Stark and Byron Nelson, are running not to merge the two parties. Joining me now, Alberta PC leadership candidate Jason Kenney. Still a bit odd. I still have a hard time saying that, but nice to see you in person.
Great to be back.
Okay, so you're in the home stretch.
Yeah.
Fair to say. I think most people still think you're the front runner, but there have been multiple attempts to keep you out of the race.
Yes, I frankly expected that, Rosemary,
Did you?
because I'm proposing a pretty dramatic change from the status quo. What I'm proposing is that we unite the broken Conservative family in Alberta, that used to exist for about 40 years under the leadership of people like Peter Lougheed and Ralph Klein. But starting about a decade ago, about half of the PC electorate and activists in Alberta felt that their party had left them. They went and created the separate party, Wild Rose. Those two parties each got about 400,000 votes apiece in the last election. The NDP won with 600,000 votes. In the same year, the federal Conservatives, supported by both PCs and Wild Rosers, won 1.2 million votes, 3 times more than either provincial party. So I have this proposal to get a mandate from PCs to pursue unity, negotiate an agreement on a united party with my friend Brian Jean, let the members decide on that through a referendum, set up the new party and have it elect its leader. This is a pretty dramatic change. Some people are understandably afraid of change, and they've been
longtime party members. They're not just people, random
Absolutely.
people. They're people who feel that this is not the way forward for the party.
And I've said from day one that I respect and understand that there are absolutely legitimate reasons to oppose what I'm saying, and we should have a good debate about that. But at the end of the day, this has to be a democratic decision.
Sure.
And the truth is, we've won the support of dozens of former PC MLAs, most of the current caucus, almost all of the youth wing, 80% of the grassroots. We believe we've elected about 80% of the delegates. So this is not some kind of hostile takeover. This is the party deciding to try to pursue the path of unity.
You talked about your friend, Brian Jean. He may be your friend, but he may not be your friend for long, because I think if this happens, he also wants to make a bid for what the new party would be.
And I would hope that other people would step forward. I really believe if we put this thing together, you need to understand, in Alberta right now, there's a lot of pent-up frustration with government that's many Albertans feel is making a bad situation, the downturn, much worse through its policies. And they really want to have a restart in our politics on the free enterprise sides. I hope we can attract some of those people to also seek the leadership. If somebody else has chosen Brian or anybody else, they'll have my total support. This unity...
Really, you would stay in this game if you're not the leader of the merged party?
This project will only work, this unity idea will only come together if people like Brian and I are willing to park our egos, and if all of us are willing to park the brands and the labels and resentments that have accumulated over a decade of division in Alberta politics.
That doesn't sound very easy.
It's not easy at all.
No.
It's, I always often say what I've decided to do is slightly crazy. This 5-point plan, 18 months, lots of obstacles, no certainty of the outcome. But it has to be done because, most Albertans, and the polls confirm this over and over again, a supermajority of Wild Rose and PC supporters say they are not prepared to risk a second NDP term through vote splitting, especially between two provincial parties that agree with each other on virtually everything. They're voting together in the legislature 90% of the time, and there is no major issue in Alberta politics today on which they disagree.
I want to put to you some of the conversation that I had with Preston Manning the other day, because he talked about populism, and you like to think about politics as well as practice it, and this is what he said about how Conservatives take advantage of it.
The populism's like a wildcat or a rogue oil or gas well where there's so much pressure from the bottom, it blows the platform and blows oil all over the place and can catch fire. It can be a very dangerous type of thing. The best way to deal with that is to drill a relief well in from the side. And if it's too shallow, it won't take the pressure up. If it's too deep, the relief well can become a rogue well. But if it's done right, it can take the pressure off, and then you can control that energy in a positive way.
I learned a lesson about wells that day as well, as you can see. But the analogy is an interesting one. Do you think that there is a space for the future of the federal Conservative Party or the Conservative movement in Alberta to tap into populism in a healthy way?
There has to be. I think Preston is bang on with this, because to dismiss and marginalize kind of populist sentiments in politics creates the kind of problems that erupt in Europe as xenophobic parties, the Front National and so forth. We need to avoid that in Canada by having what I would call a cheerful and responsible approach to populism, and to channel those, like in Alberta right now. I talked about how really, frankly, frustrated to the point of real anger a lot of people are. I've in this 8-month-long campaign not said a single critical word or personal attack against Rachel Notley or anybody in the NDP. I criticize their policies, but what I tell people explicitly, what I hope we can do is to channel their frustration into positive political action that is a hopeful and optimistic message about economic growth and opportunity, and not get into the kind of, frankly, Trumpian demagogic populism that we see in too many parts of the world now.
Do you see it in your big brother party, though, in the leadership race now? Are there elements of it, people going about it in a ham-fisted way?
Ham-fisted would be exactly the right word. I think there's at least one candidate I can think of who, I was a Minister of Multiculturalism for 10 years and a Minister of Immigration for 5, and I brought in some tough reforms to the asylum system, against human smuggling, against immigration fraud of various kinds, but always tried to start the message with a positive affirmation of our belief in being an open and welcoming country, about legal immigration, the successful integration of newcomers. And then I would say, but we need to ensure that people don't abuse our generosity. Public support for immigration depends on there being a consistent application of fair rules. It's about having a soft heart and a hard head, to say a balance. That's the kind of, for 10 years, I tried very carefully to calibrate that balanced approach between the rule of law and compassion, between openness and the country's interests. And I think we did a pretty good job of that. And so it does grieve me to see some people,
but Kelly Leach, I imagine we're talking about.
You might say that, I couldn't possibly comment.
Right.
Who really don't seem to understand how difficult these issues are, and have been addressing them with a certain imprudence.
And would you view that as a setback then for the work that you did when you were in government?
Well, I just hope most people don't ascribe views to the Conservative Party of Canada that are being articulated by one or two people. Look, the Conservative Party in 2011 and 2015 won a higher share of votes amongst new Canadians than amongst native-born citizens. This is the only centre-right party in the world to have achieved that. I've had everybody from the Australian Liberals to the German Christian Democrats, the British Tories, American Republicans, all of these centre-right parties saying, how did you do this? And I said, we focused on an appeal to values. Most immigrants are ambitious to succeed economically. They believe in economic freedom and opportunity, and also the rule of law and the importance of family, respect for tradition. Many are natural conservatives in their political temperament and values, but they weren't necessarily voting that way. Right. So I do hope that people don't get the misconception. Look, the Conservative Party, Preston Manning's Reform Party, elected the first Muslim to Parliament, Raheem Jaffrey, the first Hindu to Parliament, Deepak O'Brien. Conservatives elected the first Asian Canadian, Douglas Jung, the first Black Canadian, Lincoln Alexander. Stephen Harper appointed the first Sunni Muslim to the Senate, and so forth. I mean, we have a great story to tell. Unfortunately, some of that right now is being obscured by, I would characterize it as an irresponsible approach by a couple of people.
So how many weeks do you have left in this?
3 weeks.
3 weeks, and then?
And then months more. 3 weeks, and then hopefully negotiations, and then ratification of the unity agreement, setting up a new party and a leadership for it.
And you're optimistic?
Very.
Really?
Alberta's the land of new beginnings and fresh starts, and we're trying to make that happen in our politics now.
All right, we'll come back anytime.
Thank you, Rosemary.
Nice to see you.